Hello, welcome to East Asia Institute's online seminar on political transition and its moving forward, challenges and lessons for Myanmar. I'm your host today, Yul Sohn, currently the president of EAI and a Yonsei University professor. Welcome. This event is the first of Democratic Cooperation online seminar series that we have planned for 2020. Today, we invite Chairman Matthew from Yangon School of Political Science as our main guest speaker. He will discuss on several issues, including the stories of Burmese democracy, such as constitution and general elections, ethnic conflict, national reconciliation, and other issues. Afterwards, there will be a round of discussion with region-specific perspectives of Asian democracy from members of Asia Democracy Research Network and the Myanmar Democracy Research Network. Dr. Sri from Indonesian Institute of Sciences, and Professor Seok from Gyeongsang National University and EAI Fellow, and Director Thawilwadee Bureekul, correct me if I'm wrong, from King Prajadhipok Institute. These four are our discussants today. During the seminar, you are welcome, the audiences, welcome to raise questions using Q&A function at the bottom of the Zoom webinar. And we will collect those questions and address at the end of the seminar. Please remember to include your name and affiliation when you're raising questions. We strongly advise you to participate in the webinar for the entire duration. And one last thing, I would like to ask you for spending a few minutes to participate in evaluation survey at the end of the seminar. At this moment, I would like to hand it over to Director Nishan Demil, Director of Veritite Research in Sri Lanka, and the ADRN member who will be moderating today's seminar. Please.
Thank you very much to the chair of EAI. For all those who have joined today, I think we are in for a very interesting discussion, and I'm excited to be moderating it. We are also running on a very short timeline, so I'm not going to take time speaking too much. Let me quickly introduce our main speaker this morning. Well, it's different time zones for different people, but our main guest speaker is also the chairman of MDRN, the Myanmar Democracy Research Network, which is a partner organization with ADRN, which most of you are members of, Dr. Myat. He's the chairperson of the Yangon School of Political Science. He's received his bachelor's degree in Yangon, Yangon Institute of Technology in 1995. He has a very interesting history, quite apart from his study of politics and his contribution. His experience of politics also, I think, is something we can learn from. He was arrested and sentenced to 7 years prison in 2000 because of his movement for democracy and human rights that he was part of. So what we are hoping to hear from you, Dr. Myat, is both the theoretical and practically thought through experience and understanding of Myanmar, and how listening to your story of Myanmar can help us actually think for all of our countries and for the region with regard to moving democracy forward. So without much ado, please unmute your mic and you have 25 minutes to make your presentation.
Thanks, Nishan. Thanks for the introduction. As Nishan said, I was a part of the democratic movement in the country, so I will take also that advantage because there are a lot of things I learned from personal experience and then from the literature. So I would like to first talk about the two traditions and two camps in the democratic transition in Myanmar. So many people knows that the National League for Democracy, led by Aung San Suu Kyi, daughter of the General Aung San, but if you are not a scholar, very few people know about the 88 generation students beyond Myanmar, because I think it is now time to express about their movement, because it is very important for the Myanmar democratic transition. So the two tradition is like one is the student social movement, and another is the NLD and the elections and their movement. So in 1988, there was a huge protest across the country. After Nguyen coup d'etat in 1962, there are a lot of other movements, but I want to start from the 1988 movement, because it is the first time for the democratic, the movement for democratic transition. So, and also these student leaders, they led the social movement in 1988, but after that they are arrested and they have to serve like around 15 or 16 years each. And after they got out of the prison again in 2004 and 2005, they organized again, and they made a lot of campaigns. And in 2007 again, there was a huge protest across the country. It is called Saffron Revolution, because it started with the raising the fuel price by the government, because now the fuel price are very a little bit expensive, and the especially people who live in Yangon are very upset, and they are very angry. And so when the 88 generation students trying to lead the movement, everybody gather around them, and unfortunately there are some monks in the Pakoku township. They supported the 88 generation students, and the monk was tied to the lamppost and beaten up by the police, and it sparked the the saffron revolution. So because it is the monk, so all the many monks in Yangon that led the demonstration, and there was, but when the demonstration, less demonstration started, all the 88 generation student leaders were arrested and in the prison. So they cannot lead anymore. But what I want to point out is the importance of these two big movements, because many people think that these two movements are as a failure. But if you look to the the movement and the time frame, you will see that there are two regime changes immediately after the two revolutions. So I think that these revolutions are very important, and it is I think it pushed for the democratic transition directly in 1988 and indirectly in 2007 Saffron Revolution, because when the military government take up the power in 1988, and also they make the elections in 1990, but they didn't transfer the power to the winning party. So, but in 1993, they started the National Convention to draft the constitution. But nobody knows that when it will be finished. So just after 2007 Saffron Revolution, they speed up the process, and within 9 months, the 2008 constitution was um, rectified in the midst of the cyclone Nakis. So you can see the how they are desperate to finish it up. So I think that these two movements has a important role in the democratic transition. So if you talk about the democratic transition in Myanmar, many people think that this transition comes from above, but there is a driving force. Without the driving force, nobody knows that when will the constitution will be finished and ratified, and nobody knows that there is a general election in 2010 or something like that. So also I want to point out the importance of these two movements. On the other hand, there's a National League for Democracy led by Aung San Suu Kyi, and they won the 1990 general election. But and again in 1990, there are so many people are excited and they wait for the leadership of the National League for Democracy, but they didn't do any social movement, and they just gave in to the military rules, and so the process is going on. There are some political maneuvering throughout from 90 elections to the 2012, because Aung San Suu Kyi was under house arrest and released, and then again under house arrest. So, but there is one important example is in 1996 student movement. It is small in scope, but the National League for Democracy disowned that it is nothing connected with the NLD or something like that. And another is in 2007 Saffron Revolution, the NLD didn't officially support the movement or something like that. So their tradition is more focused on the elections and something like that. But on the other hand, the student generation, they are more active and they always try to make the social movement. So if you look through the prism of the game theory, you will see that the NLD is more like the weak opposition, and these student generation more like the strong opposition. But there are some strengths and weaknesses, because the NLD has a strong leadership, and the strength of the NLD is they have strong leadership and they are institutionalized, and also they have legal status. So whenever there's a chance for the coordination between the opposition and the military dictators, they are better positioned to do that. But for the ADRN generation students, they have strong leaderships and they have strong campaign movement, but they don't have any legal status, and they are not very institutionalized. There is no clear governance structure or something like that, and so they are not positioned to coordination with the dictator. So you will see that in 1988 revolution and 2007 Saffron Revolution, there is no coordination between these student groups and the military dictator. So we don't get the true democratic transition. And for the general my own insight for the regime changes after the two revolutions is that in politics, it is from my personal experience. In politics, the recent data is very important for all the political entities to survive, or if someone undermine the recent data of the political institutions, even the military dictators. So 2007 revolution showed that the people don't support the military dictators anymore. So they have to change. So in 1988, the Burmese Socialist Program Party, they have to change. So there is two regime changes after the two revolutions. So it is quite interesting for the Myanmar case. And for the 2008 constitution, and after 2 years, there is a general election in 2010, and there is a first democratically elected. No, the election is controversial because of the advanced voting for the USDP parties or something like that. But it is the first elected government after the 2 or 3 after many decades. So, but the actually speaking, the liberalization process started in 2000 after 2010 election and 2011 Thein government, because the most prominent one is about the release of the 88 generation student leaders. So nobody expected that. In 2012, there is they released the 88 generation student leaders. They are very strong, and nobody expected that they will be released so soon. And there are a lot of deregulations on the business and something like that. So So you can see that without bias, you can see that the liberalization process started in the Thein Sein government. But the military has strong presence in the executive branch and also in the legislation and also in the parliament. There are 25% reserved seats for the military personnel, and also the section 436 of the constitution said that with more than 75% of the parliamentary support, they can change the constitution. So 25% is occupied by the military, and so it is impossible for the constitutional amendment. So and then in 2015, there is a general election again. But before that, in 2012, there is a by-election, and the NLD decided to take back in the election, so they got into the parliament in 2012. So in 2015, NLD won the landslide victory, and so this time they can form the government. But after the forming the government, you will see that there's a lot of ministries from the former generals and something like that. So they adopt the national reconciliation policy. It means that the NLD give up the confederation policies, and they're trying to do the national reconciliation with the military. So they have to compromise a lot to the military. So because of these national reconciliation policy, there are so many repercussions, especially in the peace process and also in the Rakhine crisis. So I would like to talk a little bit about the ethnic conflicts and peace process. The ethnic armed organization signed the nationwide ceasefire agreement under Thein Sein government. So the strategy is that they will sign the NCA, and then there will be a political dialogue. And if the agreement is made between the ethnic armed organization and the military, and they will use this agreement and change the constitution and go for the democratization process. But it was stuck in the middle. And then after the NLD took power in 2015, so because of the national reconciliation policy and because of the NLD positioning in the peace process, they are not even allowed to take back in the security sector discussion or something like that. So the positioning of the NLD is a little bit controversial because they don't have any say in the discussion between the EAOs and the military. So the EAOs and the military, they all are armed organizations. So for armed organization, they have a lot of suspicions over one another because of the long history of the animosity between the two groups and the alleged persecution by the military over the ethnic minority groups. So they don't have trust in each other. So if without NLD's position in the middle, and it is also the civilian government intervention. So it is really difficult to strike an agreement between the two armed organizations. So this is also a very important point. So NLD needs to reposition themselves and try to make the trusted partner for both camps. Only after that they can move forward in the peace process. Without that, because of these huge suspicions over one another, it is really difficult because the military thinks that if the ethnic armed organization are granted federalism or something like that, they were trying to secede from the country, or so they want to disarm the ethnic armed groups first and then go for the constitutional amendment or something like that. But from the other side, ethnic minority groups, if their leverage is their arms. So if they give up their arms and if they disarm themselves, they have no leverage left for the political bargaining. So they want the political agreement first, and they want the constitutional change first. Only after that they want to disarm themselves. So this is the dilemma, and the NLD cannot take the middle position as a trusted partner for both camps, and so they need to reposition themselves if they want to move forward in peace process. So again, also in the Rakhine crisis, because of the national reconciliation policy, they didn't confront the military. So the military has the free hand in the clearance operations, and 700,000 fled across the border to the Bangladesh, and also allegedly there are 1,000 killed in the clearance operation. So the NLD cannot handle sufficiently in the Rakhine crisis also. So they even take the responsibility and go to the ICJ hearing, but there is no the strategy exit for the NLD is not very clear, because you will see that they compromise a lot, but in return, what do they get for the for example in the constitutional reform? And they're trying to do the constitutional reform in 2019, and what they get is that only the wording of the disabled, Matuan Matsuan to Matan Swan. So only one wording can be changed. So all the important clauses in the constitution, they cannot change, because the military holds it is like the supreme veto player. So if they don't consent, they will just reject the proposal. So the NLD has no clear the strategy exit or strategy breakthrough for the democratization process. So at first we thought that there will be a pact, because NLD compromised a lot, and they compromised in the Rakhine crisis and also in some political and civil liberties. But in return, they don't get anything. So it means that it is the pact between the power elites is far from the reality. So they need to change their position also. And again, and there will be an election in 2010, and there are some risks in the in that, because if you see in the Rakhine region in the western part of the Myanmar, you will see that the ADRN National Party, they won a majority seats in the parliament. But according to the constitution, only the president can appoint the chief minister for the Rakhine state. And so the chief minister is the NLD member. He is the Rakhine, but he is the NLD member. So the Rakhine people are very upset and very frustrated. But at the time, the ADRN army, you will see that the recent data of the political parties is now undermined. They won majority seats, but they cannot do anything. So they don't have any power in the executive branch. It is all controlled by the NLD, and also in the and in other policy matters, they cannot have much influence in that. So the ADRN army has a strong reason to persuade the people to support the movement. So many people joined the ADRN army, and now the majority of the areas of the Rakhine region is many areas of the Rakhine state is now controlled by the ADRN army. So if now the ethnic political parties are doing better, especially in the Kachin and the Mon, now they merge the parties, and they are now become stronger. So I think they will do better in the 2020 elections. But again, if they win in the election, and if they don't have any power or something like that, there will be a frustration again. So it will support, if there is a chance for the ethnic organization to persuade the people, there will be a support for the movement or something like that. So the peace process, it will have huge impact on the peace process. So and my last point is about the possibilities of the de facto federalism, because all the ethnic minority groups want the federalism, and the military doesn't want to give up the federalism to the ethnic minority groups. So there are some loopholes in the 2008 constitution. So it doesn't say that the president cannot appoint the one supported by the the ethnic minority parties. So they can use that chance, and the president of the country can appoint someone from the ethnic minority groups, and it is like the political federalism, but it is de facto because it is not in the constitution. But again, also in the budget matters, they can also, because if they win the majority seat, they can control the budget, and they can decide on budget allocation as they wish, and they can have the pact between the ethnic minority groups, and they can allocate a large share of the budget to the local government, so that they have the power, the budget, the power to manage things in their own state. So it is more like the fiscal federalism. And again, for the administrative federalism, so back 3 or 4 years ago, the General Administration Department was under the Ministry of Home Affairs, which is under direct control of the Commander-in-Chief. So also the minister is the former generals, so they control the home affairs, and so they control the administration department. Now it is changed, and now the administration department is under the civilian government. So now they have the power to grant the administrative power to the ethnic minority groups. So these three are the main three characteristics of the federalism, and if the NLD is willing to do that, they can adopt these de facto federalism. I don't want to push for the de jure federalism, because if they grant the de jure, it will undermine. So this is the subtle politics. It will undermine the reason data of the ethnic armed groups, because if there is federalism, there is no reason for them to take arms, or so it is a middle way. And also it will be the ethnic minority groups will be satisfied to some degree, because they will have some powers. So it can be done without changing the constitution. So it is, politically speaking, it is doable. So, but there are some problems in the Shan state, because there are minorities within minority, and also in the Rakhine state. But the political arrangement can be made to avoid some conflicts and something like that. So this de facto federalism will push for the ethnic armed groups to reintegrate to the former system or former democratization process. And again, because of, if they successfully can reintegrate the ethnic armed groups into the former system, it will also undermine the recent data of the military, because their reason for staying in the politics is that because there is a conflict, and there is a lot of violence, and country is not peaceful. As long as country is not peaceful, they will stay in the politics or something like that. It will also undermine their reason to stay in the power. So I think it is also contribute to the democratization process. So I think I will finish here. I think time is up.
Thank you, Dr. Myat. Let me just ask one clarifying question from what you've set up, I think, in a very interesting way, about the social movements, the elections, the constitution, the potential for de facto federalism. You position the constitution as a significant issue for Myanmar. So would you now characterize Myanmar as a constitutional democracy or a constitutional autocracy? I mean, some of the ways you described Myanmar suggested that constitution is part of the problem. And do you envisage the democratization path for Myanmar as a path in which what's the priority in reforming the constitution itself? Is it the solution or the problem for Myanmar? Go ahead.
Yeah. So for right now, you will see that there are loopholes in the constitution. So if you can successfully use these loopholes, and if you successfully push for the more democratic reforms, I think the constitution is a stepping stone. But without that, you will stay in the hybrid regime forever, have civilian government and have autocrats. So it will stay for forever. Because as I said before, there is no strategic breakthrough, possible strategic breakthrough for the NLD, because they disown the social movement, and in the official letter to the commemorating events for the 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 student who died in the 1988 student movement, they said that they will not take that path again because it will has have some casualties, the civilian death in the movement, or so they disown these social movement, and I think this is they get rid of their own leverage, because without that leverage or without credible threat, so military is very in the comfort zone. If you want to do the constitutional reform in the parliament, they just vote it down. They don't have to do anything. They don't have to struggle. So I think if you don't push enough for the constitutional reform, the country will stay in this hybrid regime forever. So if you can do it successfully, it is a stepping stone. It is a good thing. But if you cannot do it, it is a problem.
Thank you very much. That's a really interesting way of putting that. Let me just move on to our next panelist. We don't have very many questions yet, so I think we can wait to ask the audience questions later. But please feel free, those who are listening in, to send in your questions through the Q&A. Dr. Sri Nuryanti is from Indonesia, and she's a panelist who's coming to speak to us today on responding to what Dr. Myat had said, but also to give us a perspective from Indonesia. She's a researcher at the Research Center for Politics at Indonesian Institute of Sciences. Since 2012, she's been serving as a member of the COPS, Women's Political Participation and Leadership in Asia Pacific. Dr. Nuryanti, thank you for joining us. You have 4 minutes. I will appear on video after 3.5. So that
sure.
me, you know, you have only half a minute left. Please go ahead. Yes.
Okay, thank you very much, Nishan. Thank you for Dr. Myat too for your presentation. And I have some responses towards your presentation. I think the crucial point of Myanmar democratic transition is on the role of military in democratic transition itself. The differences between democratic transition in Myanmar and in Indonesia is on the military role. In Indonesia, we do have experience during democratic transition from New Order era to Reform era or Reformasi era in 1998. Military was functioning as the security forces that sometimes act too harsh to student movement group by pouring the water cannon and other security treatment towards the demonstrators, who mainly dominated by student and political activists. After the stepping down of President Suharto, the military was not in charge of any political position. In the Reformation era, military was reformed themselves. So by stopping the practice of dwifungsi, we call it dwifungsi activity, military went back to barrack. During military reform, military also country from any military or non-military operation from outside or inside the country. Police is also, police is used to be part of military. And after this reform, police is no longer be part of military organization. And police is only in charge for guarding security and social order. This is the first response of your presentation. The other thing that I can say, the Indonesian democratic transition, which voted by mass rally, dominates that taking over the parliament, joining in the efforts of 2000. At that time, our president was fully
I think we lost Dr. Nuryanti for a little bit. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Myat? Yes. Dr. Nuryanti, you're back. Welcome. Please continue. I think we just lost you momentarily. Go ahead.
Okay. So after the democratic transition in 98, the political life was remarkably changing. Political life was in euphoria. Therefore, many political parties were established, and there were 48 political parties contested in the election in Indonesia that was held in 1999. That was 1 year after the reform era. Since then, we do not have military reserve seat in the Indonesian parliament. And then constitution was just been amended in 2002, and it is done in parliament. Then I have some question to be asked to Dr. Myat too. First, is there any military in Myanmar not to get involved in politics, such as by the second one? What about the role of political parties to empower themselves in forming the background? What is the current role of political NGO in shaping democratic transitions of Myanmar? And then lastly, is there any significant student movement in the democratic transition in Myanmar other than the 88 generation? I think that's all I'm responded to Dr. Myat's presentation, and hopefully we could discuss more later on. Thank you. Thank you, Nishan.
Thank you very much. I think maybe it's good for Dr. Myat to respond to Sri Nuryanti's second question, along with an audience question. So let me phrase the question for you. I think Sri Nuryanti asked the question, what can NGOs do? But I think we have a question from also Professor Jared Sandler from Gyeongsang University that says, how can international assistance help? So really, the question for you, Myat, is, if you look at forces outside Myanmar, international forces, as well as civil society, outside your social movements, maybe other types of democratic NGOs, the newer organizations, what is your advice to them about how they can engage with Myanmar? What precise advice would you give them? You may want to keep it short, but we are very interested to hear your answer to that question about NGOs and international community. How can they help?
Yeah, they can help in some the legal reforms and rule of law sector and also democratic transition. But please be advised that because NLD won a landslide victory in the 2015 elections, their legitimacy is too strong. So in these circumstances, you will see that the space for the civil society, very strong civil society in Myanmar is very limited. So it seems that they don't have to listen to other voices because they have very strong legitimacy. They won a landslide victory. But and under these circumstances, there's so many civil society organizations push for the changes in the constitutional reforms and also engagement with the parliamentary for the legal reforms and something like that. But as I said before, it is very limited because of very strong legitimacy of the NLD.
And what about the international community? Do you see a role or a way in which they should engage or ways in which they should not engage? Sometimes your advice may be what other countries and others shouldn't do. Do you have any thought on that before we move to the next discussant?
Yeah, there's a role for the Indonesian assistance, but their approach has to be very subtle. So they cannot confront the NLD government or something like that. Their approach should be mild and trying to persuade them, and because if you are trusted, they will listen to you. So this is our own personal experience with the engagement with the parliaments. So when they become trusted in us, they listen to us, and they are because of our recommendations, there are some changes in the legislation process or something like that. So you need to be very subtle. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Let me go on to introduce our next discussant, Dr. Bureekul, who's from Thailand. And we want to present now, just like we had Indonesia as We Want Democracy. And Nuryanti, I want to come back to you later with Myat on some of the things you raised. But let's give Dr. Bureekul a chance. She's the Director of Research and Development Office in King Prajadhipok Institute, KPI. She's also been a professor in several universities in Thailand and a former member of the National Reform Council and member of the Constitutional Drafting Committee and former member of the National Reform Steering Assembly as well, where she plays an important role in the reformation process of Thailand. So we are hearing from another important thinker, activist, who's worked in democratic reform. Let me invite you to switch on your video and mic. Thank you. I will reappear 3 minutes and 30 seconds into your talk so that when you see my face again, you'll know you have 30 seconds. Thank you for joining us. Please go ahead.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Firstly, I would like to thank CAI and Matthew for organizing such a good webinar today. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the Myanmar Democratic Transition and its Challenge presentation by Matthew. I would like to make some idea, respond to this, and also raise some experiences from Thailand also. Since Thailand has a close tie with Myanmar for a long time, and since we are neighbor and also the member of ASEAN country, so we keep an eye on the movement in Myanmar also. And when talking about democratic transition in Myanmar, after Myanmar suffered for military rule for a long period of time, we think of the success of the big changes in Myanmar. For example, the election and also the progress in economic development. This is the big driver that we think that it will drive Myanmar to move moving forward to achieve the true democracy. And then we're looking at the fighting with the dictatorship in Myanmar. We would like to learn from the experiences of the Myanmar also, because Thailand also suffered for military rule for a long time after we have a lot of coup d'etat, and we just come back to have election last year, and still military still occupy the Senate and also some party administrative party that rule the country right now. So I think we have to exchange some idea about how to move forward. And then after looking at the Myanmar transition to democracy and listen to Matthew's presentation, I think that there's still many challenges. For example, the big issues related to human rights, which is caused by the discrimination with ethnic groups. We also suffer from this because a lot of Rohingya move to Thailand or move to the border of Thailand, and we have the refugee camp for helping this group, and also the economic development in Myanmar also affected by a lot of influence from foreign country. I think this is the big change that make Myanmar, which is very beautiful country, to move forward to achieve a high GDP movement country. And also I think it creates a lot of inequality in Myanmar also, because a lot of young generation from Myanmar come to Thailand to work as a labor. We have millions of legal young generation from Myanmar to come to work in Thai industry, and also a lot of illegal. So this is the big change. I think these people learn a lot from the fast economic development in Thailand and would like to move back to the country. And I think this group will be the big driver in the future of Myanmar. And also another thing is about civic engagement. I don't know about the civic, to what extent the civic engagement level in Myanmar, but I hope in the future more public space available for big change, especially the social movement and also the social media that influence the idea and the movement, and also the drug trafficking, because since talking about the tie between Myanmar and Thailand, or also the ethnic group and minority group on the border, we have to talk about the drug trafficking. So this is the big challenge for the Myanmar government. So I think this will influence the moving forward to achieve true democracy. So this what I would like to mention about factors that affecting the effective transition. That's also the big challenge that I mentioned. But for the effective transition, I think that we have to think of the leader and political will of the country. I am not sure whether they are going to bring back to democracy. Sometimes they may find the influence from some country that come to participate in the business, and those are many countries like China, Singapore, India, and South Korea, for example. I think the government have to think a lot about this, where to move forward, and also the public trust. I'm not sure about the high level.
Thank you, Dr. Bureekul. I think we'll come back to you in question time. I think you're raising some very interesting and important issues about political will at the leadership level, public trust. And let me just go to the third discussant and then come back to maybe afterwards you can add more of your thoughts to us before we finish. And I will begin by introducing our third discussant, Professor Jun-Sok Bae from South Korea. He's a professor of political science and international relations at Gyeongsang National University. He served as a senior research fellow of the EAI, which is the host institute, also with MDRN today. His main research is concentrated on the concept of election, parliament, and political parties. His recent publications include Examining North Korea and Security Policy in an Approach of Generation and Ideology, The Janus Phase, the Imperial but Fragile Presidency in South Korea. I think we had the advantage of having discussants all from countries that have had military leadership or dictatorship at different times in their history and have struggled and overcome it in different ways. So this is a very interesting, I think, discussion. And let me invite Professor Jun-Sok Bae to lead us. You have 4 minutes, and I will once again appear in 3.5 to tell you that there's time. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for the informative presentation. So I am very happy to learn about important issues related to democracy in Myanmar. I'm not an expert in Myanmar, so I'd like to add a few words based on a general theory related to democratization. I hope we can apply the theory to the Myanmar case. And then I will also briefly include the Korean cases if necessary. Okay. As you know, students of comparative democratization have elaborated on the path and strategy of democratization. Let's look at the issues related to the path of democratization. There are issues related to the priority of competition and participations, or rivalization and inclusion. So the first path is the competition first. The second is the participation first. And the third is the simultaneous expansion of competition and participation. But the experts in this area say that the first phase, that is the competition first, is the most favorable for stable democratization. This is because as the competition among elites is guaranteed first, and as participation expands over time, so norms such as mutual trust, confidence, and tolerance among competitors can be established. Some may say like this, how can you trust dictators? Or some people say that, how can tolerate dictators? Is it possible? So I will talk about it later, but the brief answer is yes. In the first path, even democrats and autocrats need to have a chance to negotiate with each other. We can learn each other. So, of course, the first path is not always good. This is because the elites who played a big role in the early stages of democratization do not want to unleash their monopoly power in the process of expanding participation. How about in Myanmar? In Myanmar, the attitude of military elites who allowed election competition is the key, the key aspect of the future democratization, I think. So it is important to embrace the soft liners in the military in the sense. Even within the democratic camps, the moderates rather than the radicals need to secure a space for them to cooperate with the soft liners in the military. However, probably they must be able to control their impulsive movements in civil society. For example, transition from below or replacement. They have emphasized those kind of the direction of the movements, right? So, but experts have agreed that the gradual process will be the best way to reduce the human cost in the process of transitions. So the democratization case of the Korea in 1987 is a good example of the negotiated transition. Because of running out of time, I will have just two short questions. Yes, you know, the relationship with the NLD and civil society. Many people is concerned about that the NLD is becoming conservative. So how can civil society cope with this problem? Okay, I will wrap up my comment and questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Gyeongsang. I think we have come to a very important question raised by Professor Gyeongsang, and I think let's make that the first question, and there are other questions from the audience. Why does the military have support? So, what Professor Gyeongsang is saying is that society supports also the military, not just other types of organizations. But at the same time, Myat, you said that the NLD had a sweeping mandate, that not even other civil society organizations had a say with the NLD. So how do you measure societal support for the change that you're talking about? So if NLD has so much support, why can't it make the changes? What is the real support that the military has? Surely the military has some legitimacy as well. Where does that come from? Why does that continue to exist? And what is the challenge to democracy from that? Maybe others can answer from their countries as well. And Professor Gyeongsang may be good to know from South Korea also. But we'll give Myat the first time to answer it, maybe in 1 minute, if you can talk to us.
Yeah, but one question is, it is really difficult to measure the support for the military because they and their families and their supporters from them, and they also have the business groups like the Union Myanmar Economic Holding Limited. It is, I think, richer than the GDP of the country. So, but when you look at the election, you will see that there are just a few people support for the military, but all the majority of the people support for the NLD. And in some cases, the military use the race and religion protection. They are the protector of the race and religion and something like that. So in these categories, I think they have some support from some portion of the society. And as Professor said, it is true that NLD is now become more conservative, but the problem is still the same. So if the civil society group trying to logically criticize the government, and they are less supporters of the NLD, they try to attack him, and they try to even if you say something on the Facebook, they will altogether report these kind of criticism. It is pure logical criticism. There is nothing that affects the community standard or something like that, but their posts are down. So it is quite really difficult, but we also have a very strong political leadership to cope with the situations. So civil society is a little bit weak compared to the political circle. You see, they don't have very strong voice, and because of the too much legitimacy of the NLD, it is still really difficult. Yeah.
Okay, now there's an audience question, Myat, from Yunji Lee, that talks about the Rakhine issue and how the international community can help, and how you can have the military loosen the crackdown on the Rohingya people in the democratization process. So let me put the question this way. Is the ethnic division or maintaining ethnic division part of the way in which the military maintains support? And is that why the NLD finds it difficult to challenge the ethnic divisions or bring around a different kind of reconciliation? Is that affecting democracy? Is the ethnic enmity playing into the democratic battle and support for the military versus NLD? I think that's the spirit of the question.
Yeah, to be honest, the Myanmar society has a strong dislike over the Muslim and also specifically Rohingyas. Because at first, even the Rakhine people, where they don't like, they hate Rohingyas. Now, the Arakan army take hold of the situation, and there's a strong conflict between the military and the Arakan armies, and they suffer the same thing as the Rohingya. And now they become to understand the plight of the Rohingya people. So even the Arakan army commander-in-chief Trumnan he even tried to represent the Rohingya people. He never say against the Rohingya people or something like that. So even the Rakhine army, and you are right. I think the military trying to use these divisions and they try to get support from the people. But the thing is, NLD is stronger than everybody thinks. So one NLD trying to undermine the Wiratu and their race and religion. So there's no big protest. There's no big protest. You will see that the Burmese people support the race and religion protection or something like that, but they support Aung San Suu Kyi better. So the politician must know their strength. So sometimes it is important to know Aung San Suu Kyi's strength. She must know her own strength better, so that she can put pressure on the military and push for the democratization.
So you're saying that Aung San Suu Kyi may be overestimating the problem of ethnic division and she has more power to change. I'll end with a question that really comes up from the audience as well. I think it came from one member of the audience, but also connects to what Dr. Bureekul from Thailand spoke about the role of other countries like China, Singapore, and economic relationships. Are the big economic relationships by dominant players like that? Which side of the divide is it assisting? Is it assisting the military to entrench itself? Is it assisting the democratic movement to gain traction? I think there's a question from the audience on the role of China, and I'm combining it with, I think, what Dr. Bureekul talked about in terms of other countries. Yes.
Excuse me.
Yeah. I think Dr. Bureekul can maybe respond what you think about it, and maybe we'll end with Myat responding to that response. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah, because I raised this issue since I'm from Thailand and see the movement in the economic development in Myanmar and see many foreign countries invest a lot in Myanmar because of Myanmar is the country rich with natural resources. especially mineral. And the big country like China invest a lot, including Singapore and Japan and South Korea. So I think that not only influence in economic development, what it may be possible to influence politics in Myanmar also. So this is the I think the Myanmar may be at the crossroad where to move forward to see the economic development and move according to the influence by some country that may be not democratic country, or move to achieve democracy by lower a little bit from economic development, but concentrate more on civic education and educate more on human rights issue. Maybe Matthew can answer this, but see from outside. I think that maybe the government have to think a lot, and especially in the period that military elite control a lot of big business in Myanmar. Thank you.
I think we can end with your response, Myat, because our time is up. But we'd love to hear a response. There are questions from the audience, I think, that are getting covered, because we've asked about international engagement, we've asked about economic engagement. I think there was another question that I'm not asking about armed organizations in Myanmar, armed ethnic organizations, and I think we talked about ethnicity and the ethnic divisions and their impact. There's a question on gender-related impact and gender equality. I think we may not have time to go into that. Perhaps we should give you the chance to now wrap up and tell us how you think about this big question of, we talked about the democratic international engagement, but now we're talking about the economic and international engagement and how they interact with the existing structures in Myanmar. Thank you.
Normally, the Burmese people don't like the Chinese businesses because they don't respect human rights, and they try to confiscate land using the very old laws, like only a $1 or $2 or $15 for an acre of land, because only it is very old laws. So the compensation fee is very low. So the Chinese company always use that. So the Burmese people don't like the Chinese companies. But now, because of the Rohingya crisis, the Western democracy have put a lot of pressure on the NLD government, and they criticize a lot. So the dilemma is that NLD has to move towards the Chinese, and the Aung San Suu Kyi became the chairperson of the cooperation committee with the Belt and Road Initiative. Now the people are very confused because they hate the China, and now NLD is trying to cooperate with the Belt and Road Initiative, and they are really confused how to support NLD, but the NLD strong supporters criticize the West for putting too much pressure on the NLD, and because they also hate Rohingyas, so these NLD supporters are saying a lot of bad things against the Americans and the Western democracy. So situation is very complicated. And another thing is the Chinese, as the military accused, the General Min Aung Hlaing himself accused the Chinese to supporting the ethnic armed groups along the Chinese border. Now there are some Chinese companies doing the casinos even in the Karen state, because they always try to avoid doing business in the Thailand border. They always do things along the Chinese border. Now they are expanding and even in the current state. So if they got money, these ethnic armed groups will be very strong, and it will be very difficult for the peace process and democratization process. Because if you look at the War state, you will see the War army is very strong. Now the Burma has no authority at all over the War state. So they are kind of like a state within a state. So it is very complicated, and the dilemma is because of the Rohingya crisis and the BRN project. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I'm not going to try to summarize. I think what we've heard is the struggles of moving forward given the history of democracy in Myanmar, and we've heard some very interesting contributions from our friends in Indonesia, Thailand, and South Korea. about how they can see aspects of that struggle in their own history. And they've had questions for the future of Myanmar as well.